Learning to weld, especially with gas, can be pretty intimidating. So we're going to go over everything that you need and how to hook up your welder to gas so you can start welding. So this is our Eastwood MP140i multi-purpose welder. It can do flux core, MIG, TIG, and stick welding. We picked it up on a Black Friday special, and this could run you from anywhere between $500 to $650. Now you could go with something a little less expensive, like a welder that only does flux core, so it's no gas hookup. But if you're gonna be welding thin sheet metal like we will be on our project cars, you're gonna end up probably blowing holes through the sheet metal because the flux core runs a bit hotter and it does tend to create more spatter, which will create more work. So the first thing that you're gonna need to get going is some welding gas. The easiest way to find some welding gas is to simply go on your phone and go into your maps and type in welding gas and see who comes up. Now, the manual does call for using 75% argon and 25% CO2 welding gas. And let me show you what we've got. So this is our cylinder with gas. This is a 40 CF size. They do have one that's a bit smaller and ones that are much, much larger. We're not going to be doing welding all the time, so this size seems to work perfect for us. We've got it laying on a welding cart here that we picked up from Harbor Freight. You could pick up a cart like this from Amazon as well. We'll leave a link in the description below with all of the stuff that we're using. The MP140 came with this nice regulator included, and it's just as simple as attaching the threads just like so and start to screw everything in. Now, you don't want to use any sort of pipe sealant or pipe threading on these seals. Everything is meant to mate together without any sort of that stuff. Once everything you get stuffed nice and snug, you can then use some soapy water here to check to see if there's any bubbles once you open everything up. And now we're going to go ahead and hook up our hose, and same thing, just screw it in and just snug it up. You don't want to go super tight on these, so I'm not cranking way up on the wrench here. I'm just giving it a little snug, just like that. So the Eastwood comes with a couple of other things to get you started. You have your ground here, which is attached in this placement for MIG, and then we have the other attachment here in the middle, and then we are going to take our attachment for our gun and we're going to attach it straight into this. Just gets plugged in there. And then you're also going to take this connector, it has a little notch on it there. Plug that in once you align the notch. Goes in just like that. Depending on the type of welding you're doing, these will get put into different places. So you can look at the manual, but this is how this should be set up for MIG. We are gonna pop the hood. And there's one last thing you need to do, which is lock this in place. And there's a little nut here that you just screw down. And that keeps this from coming back in and out. So the Eastwood also came with .023 wire size, which is going to be perfect for the different variety of sizes of sheet metal that we're going to be welding. First thing is you're going to take this guy off. Has a couple of other screws in here. I'll show you how those go. All right, you go ahead and put that on. Removing that bigger spool allows you to put smaller spool sizes in here. And the first thing you're going to do is use one of the washers. Put that in. You'll have another spring, put the spring in, and then another washer. Then you'll have your little nut that goes on here. And there you go. We're gonna be feeding our wire right through there. And the tensioner is already set for 023 wire. There's other videos on how to kind of set the tensioner, so I won't cover that. The manual also goes over on how to do that. So let's get the wire fed through. Unloosen it here, and you don't want that to happen. So the easiest way to fix some problems is just to cut it. So we're gonna hold on to it, snip it, get rid of that, and we're gonna now feed it through. make sure we release some of the tension here. We don't want it too tight. And then we're going to feed the wire through. And once we have it in, then we can lock everything in place, and everything is held in now with the tensioner. So the easiest way to get everything fed through here is just to pull the trigger. You'll see that moving. Now you can see the tension may be a little bit too tight, so I'm going to back this off just a little bit. There we go. So the next thing you're going to need is a couple of things for safety. So we have a flame retardant shirt. We've also got our welding gloves. We have a nice welding mask. And then this comes in handy. That's a welding blanket. And we also have a fire extinguisher too, just to be safe. So the last thing we need to do is just turn on the gas, and let's do that now. So this is one of the easiest steps. You literally crank this to the open position, and then you also have your regulator here. So this also has a close, tells you the direction for close and open. So we'll open this guy. And you want to make sure that this is opened all the way. Then you want to come over to your pressure regulator, and the manual calls for being around 20. And there you have it. So we're ready to power this thing on and get welding. We're actually going to be doing some thinner sheet metal first, so around 22 gauge. And that calls for voltage set to 6 and our wire feed set between 2.5 and 4. So we set a voltage to 6 here as far as where it reads on this gauge. Now it does show that it's actually set to 16 here, but we're actually following the number that was on the back of the panel that is relative to the gauge here. And then on our wire feed that was 2.5, so it would be 2.5 to 4. So we're going to start off with the 2.5, so right between 2 and 3. So I do have something that's more of a 22 gauge, and then I have something here that's about a 16 gauge or so. So we're going to practice on both. So for this one, what we're going to do is I'm literally just going to do a few tack welds, or basically spot welds. And when you're doing something small like this, what I've found is that you won't be able to drag across and do a continuous weld. Now, if you're on a table like this that acts like a heat sink, you will have no problem dragging the weld through without blowing a hole through this metal. But when this is just suspended and there's no heat sink behind it, if you try to drag through, you're basically going to be running too hot. Now you can reduce the settings on the welder, but you're typically going to get into trouble, and we'll have to just do little spot welds. And we also have our ground clamp here, so what's nice is we can just clamp this to the table. If you're doing a piece that you don't have a table like this, you can clamp onto that particular piece and then start welding across. So this will be on the table will be grounded, and we'll grab this guy. The other thing you want to do is snip that extra off there. When you use the snip part on the outside and just have it flush up to the gun, that typically gives you the perfect length there. Safety first. I think what's happening is the other side of this has got some paint on it still, so it's not grounding right. Snip that again. Go from the table right onto the piece and give it a try. I forgot to turn the gas back on when I left for lunch break. So let's make sure the gas is properly on and that it's at PSI of like 20. So this is what you want it to look like, a nice bead, and then if you look at the back side, you can see that there's actual penetration coming through on the back. So this is what you want it to sort of look like. That's what you don't want it to look like. We're gonna leave our settings low, and we're gonna try welding on the thicker material to see what that looks like with too low setting. So here we are, we've got the little bead coming up, but it's not penetrating very well on the other side. So, and the bead is very high. 22 gauge, we're running at a voltage of 6 and a wire feed of 2.5 to 4. And when we move up to 16 gauge, we're at voltage 9 and a wire feed of 8 to 10. So we're gonna wanna increase our voltage range to 9. So this is our voltage. We can go up to 9. For 16 gauge, our wire feed, we're gonna wanna go to 8 to 10. So wire feed between 8 and 10. So we'll just go to 9 there. Now we have much better penetration. So those are looking better. The one thing I will say is that for the larger or the thicker gauge metal, you'll be able to drag across. I'm gonna show you here right now that we can drag across without blowing a hole. And you can see we have pretty decent penetration. I could probably play around with the settings a little bit more,